Sorry for the delay. I couldn't get the computer to work. Which, whenever the computer needs restarting, the Zoom doesn't work.
Yeah. What do you mean?
Yesterday you asked me to restart it, and now it's
Working now, isn't it?
Yeah. But then I'm on a few minutes. It took a long time for it to get going. Is everybody okay? Anything?
Okay.
What? Any good news?
We better leave the recording on today, right?
Yeah.
Better leave the recording on.
Right, okay, we'll start straight away a bit late. If I was to write Mishnah Shabbos, I would have started with this Mishnah. This Mishnah finally sets out for us what are the 39 malachos which are forbidden for Shabbos. And it's actually a very fascinating thing that most Masechtas, it is rare for the Mishnah to actually start in order. You think about Yevomas, the first Mishnah in Yevomas, it talks about how it's Tzoras Elvos Prita Yibum. You haven't yet learned about Yibum, you haven't learned about Tzor, you haven't learned about anything, and you start off with the most complicated case possible. Here as well. This Mishnah, which tells us that the main halachas of 39 halachas of Shabbos, instead of it being in the beginning of Shabbos, it's right in the middle. You have that in Gittim, you have that in most Masechtas. I once said from a Talmud Chacham that you're supposed to look at Gemara like a huge sea, Yam HaTalmud, the sea of the Talmud. When you go to the sea, there's nowhere, it's not like a canal, where you can say you're starting at the beginning of the canal and you finish at the other end. Rather with the sea, whenever you go in, the deeper you get in, the more you are close to all the different edges of the sea. So if you're in the middle of the sea, you're actually in the best spot if you needed to know anything that's happening in the sea. So Rabbi Yehuda Nossi, when he wrote a Mishnah, didn't expect to, like, I'm going to start off first with one thing and then I'll teach you the next thing. Like, you're doing, if you're learning maths, they have the $11. First you learn the plus, the minus, the times table, then algebra, etc. But the Gemara, it's not like that. We always jump in straight into the deep end. It's an interesting thing to think about. I know it's a bit off the point. Why the Mishnah is so in the order that they are. So the Mishnah finally tells us what the Ovis Malachos are. Ovis Malachos. What are the four? What are the Ovis Malachos? Aboim Choseh Achas 4-1. Hazirah. We could really spend a few minutes in each Malacha defining it, but then we would run out of time. So we're only going to define the ones which are needed. So Hazirah means planting. Anything which helps planting. Once mentioned, watering is a form of Zirah. Ba'achivash and plowing. Plowing. What does normally a person do? Plow first or plant first? What do you do normally?
Oh.
And the Mishnah? Mishnah says planting first. Okay, it doesn't matter. Somebody who harvests, right? Harvests. Somebody who gathers bundles. Hadosh, somebody who threshes. You stamp on the grains. Oh, so here I've got loads of pictures actually today. Literally loads of pictures. But the shadow is which one should we let's go through very, very, very briefly. I don't know which pictures you want. Yossi, is Yossi on? Yeah, Yossi, no. Okay, so here is a Zereh. And there's a Chavish. Nice to have a few pictures very often. And then you have a Kaitza, somebody who's harvesting. And finally, Ma'amah, somebody who's gathering the bundles. Hadosh. So what you do is you get the cow to go around, and then with their metal spokes at the bottom of a wooden plow, and then it breaks down the grain. Hazora. Somebody who winnows, it's in English. You throw it up in the air, and the wind divides the chaff from the grain. Haboira, then the one who separates the kernels from the pebbles that got mixed in. Hatoichen, somebody who grinds, right? You have to grind the grain to make it into flour. I once went actually to an old mill where they used to grind with a stone. If you ever tried it, I don't know how they did it in the olden days. If you work 10 minutes quarter now, you produce about 10 grams of flour. Luckily nowadays I have machines that do it all for us. A meraked. Meraked is sieving. And Rashi already points out the problem that sieving is dividing the good and the bad. Boira, dividing the good and the bad. Zoira is dividing the good and the bad. You're winnowing. And yet the three different malachas, essentially all three are doing the exact same kind of action. The halosh, somebody who needs, nice to see it, somebody who mixes flour and water needs it. The oifa and the baker, one who bakes. Hagoz is a satsema, somebody who shears the wool.
Sorry, why is it repeated? Did you say? Why do they use three different examples?
Oh, the Gemara asked that question. The Gemara asked the question. Very good. Yes. You whiten the wool after you shear it. Oh, here we get even more complicated. Menapates, the exact is to comb it out that the threads shouldn't be entangled. And then you color the wool. And then you spin the wool. You spin the wool. It is interesting, I saw the Rishonim pointing out that they used to color it and then afterwards spin it into threads. That way the color would sink into the dye, into the wool better. You would only do that later, the spinning. The hamesach, somebody who sets up the loom, the wool. Now basically, this is something which gets very, very, let's go to the next one, then we'll discuss it a little bit more. But I say shtei botei nirin, and somebody who makes two botei nirin. And let's just do, okay, we'll talk about that. Basically, nowadays, a lot of people know this, but in old days, it required something like Dan Kukovitsky wrote a whole sefer about this. But basically, there's a concept of weaving. Weaving is a matter of putting threads between others, like in a in and out method. The problem is that nice picture. Even got Sweet's child doing it for us. Now the problem is, thank you Yossi, the problem is that to make a thread go in and out thousands of times would require huge amounts of effort. So they used to set up a system, a warp, I think it was called in English, where basically you had pedals and a ability to lift one set and the other set, meaning every second thread was attached to one frame and the alternate threads were attached to another frame. And you'd press one pedal and every second thread would go up and you would throw across a ball of thread. And then you would lift up the other frame and the alternate threads would go up and you'd throw the ball of thread back. And that's how you would make your cloth. So Mesach, according to Rashi, is simply going back now. Mesach is somebody who prepares the thread over the warp. That means if you look over here in this picture, he's putting the thread over a warp. He's setting it all up. Now Rashi says means somebody who threads the thread inside two rings, which they would then eventually use to lift up and down with the pedals. That's how Rashi explains. The Rambam says actually means to make the framework, not to thread the thread through the framework, but rather to actually make the two frameworks. And somebody who weaves. Now, here, Tosis asks a question. It's a very short Tosis, the second Tosis of the page. Tosis says like this: The Mishnah so far over here has not told us the measurements of how much you have to do to be chayav. It doesn't say how much you have to plow, how much you have to harvest. Later, the Mishnah will tell us in great detail how much you have to do. For example, if you make a tiny bit of harvesting, you're not chayav. There has to be a measurement in order to be chayav v'chatos. Yet by some of these malachas, for some reason, the Mishnah does tell us, by weaving it tells us, by shnei botei nirin it tells us, by writing. And Tosis says we need an explanation, and Tosis does not bring us the explanation. It just says we need an explanation without telling us what the explanation might be. Yehuda brings an explanation which he does not like, and that's a very interesting explanation, and that is like this. We have an halacha, a chatzi shiur, half a shiur is also completely forbidden. So therefore, for example, Let's say you're not allowed to take out a slice of bread. You're not allowed to carry a slice of bread. Half a slice of bread is much less, so it's only a chatzi shiur. But you will not be chayav chatos. But of course, it is forbidden. Says the Yehuda, brings the Yehuda the idea that perhaps when it comes to these malachas, if you do half, meaning you do less than what the Mishnah specifies, then you've done nothing at all. Think about it. What is weaving? Weaving is that you take a string between and you go in and out. If you only go in once without going the in and out process, then you've not done weaving. And therefore, it's not even a chatzi shiur, it's nothing at all. That is the reason.
You've got to stay isolated.
Oh, so therefore the same thing by writing 2 letters.
You can have, if you write 1 letter.
Right, 1 letter, it's not pshat, you've done a chatzi shiur, you've done nothing at all. But the Yehuda does not like this pshat, but he brings it. This is the ancient explanation. Because again, the question is why by only very few of the malachos does the Mishnah tell us a number of how much you have to do? And the Torah says we need an explanation without telling us an explanation. There's a suggestion that perhaps it's not even a chatzi shiur. But we said it's weaving to now pitzea shnei chitin. Here in the picture, it shows you that what you've done is you undo 2 threads. Undo 2 threads. That is not Rashi's explanation. The one who wrote these pictures is arguing with Rashi. Rashi's explanation is different. And I was quite happy because this Sefer Pirush Chai actually shows you a picture of Rashi, which is nice because it's nicer to have Rashis. If you look over here, it's quite delicate to see. You've got the middle threads are much wider than the other threads. The middle 2 threads over here, if you look, are very, very wide. That means imagine you're weaving and the thread, some of these threads were quite thick, suddenly became very, very wide. Sometimes making cotton wool wicks on Hanukkah, you find. What would you do? So then what you do is that you weaken the threads. And what you do is you make the threads, you cut away a bit of the thread to make them thin like other threads. Can you see over here? Can you see? Can anybody see or not? You make the thread thin, to thin out threads. That's how Rashi explains. There are other Rishonim explain like this picture, that pitzea means to undo the thread. It means either pitzea means to cut away a thread completely, or pitzea means to thin a thread. One third explanation from the Ran is as follows. When a thread gets torn, what they used to do is, like you have with your tzitzis, where it's twisted together, they would untwist the 2 threads where it's been torn, and then twist them back together to make it into a good thread. Here he shows it to you a little bit. Can you see over here? This is the Ran's pshat. The thread got torn, it got split. So what do? You unravel the ends of the 2, and then you twist them together again. This unraveling in the middle stage, that is pitzea. Pitzea basically is the opposite of weaving. So either it means to cut 2 threads off, or it means to thin a thread, or it means to untwist a thread simply to then make a better thread. Hakosha, somebody makes a knot, right? Vahamati, somebody undoes a knot. Some do sews 2 stitches. So some do tears in order to do two stitches. And here, there's an important picture. I'd like to show a little bit if you can see it. Yeah, it's not so hard to see, hopefully. The halacha is that you only chai by tearing if your intention is to sew. Why would you tear to sew? Now, if you look at this cloth, a worm made a hole inside the cloth over there. Can you see the hole inside the cloth? Now, what would you do if a worm made a hole in your Shabbos tablecloth? What would you do? So then you have to cut through all the way to the hole and past the hole, and then you stitch it up. Look at the bottom picture. And then what you've done is you've cut through to the hole and past the hole. Can you see? And then you stitched it up, and now nobody will know that a worm ate through a hole of your tablecloth. That is what they used to do. So there, when you tear to get to the hole, You're tearing in order to be able to resew it in a way that the hole cannot be seen. Anybody who's not clear, do a favor to everybody if it is and if you question it, because that means you have to only if you're tearing in order to sew. So you're tearing to get to a hole in order to sew it up. Hatzad tzvi chapedir ashoichtoi shechtet mafshito. You skin it. Hamolcho. You salt it. Ma'abedis ovoi. Ma'abedis ovoi is you tan it. You make the skin. You work the skin. Here you cut away. You get rid of all the hair and the bits on it. You skin it. You clean it. And you cut it to size. You write 2 letters. Some do deletes in order to write 2 letters. Somebody who builds, somebody who knocks down. And somebody who puts out a fire, somebody who lights a fire. There's an interesting question over here. I don't know if you've noticed, but most times it talks about the building, then the dismantling, sewing and unsewing, weaving and unweaving. And over here it says mechaba, putting out a fire, v'hamave, and lighting a fire. It's quite strange that we should talk about putting out a fire before putting on a fire. There's an answer as follows, that our Mishnayos, the Seches Shabbos, there's a big machlekes of Yehuda and Shimon. I'm going to come to it in a second because it's a very beautiful idea over here. And a big machlekes of Yehuda and Shimon, which we had many times, regarding a malacha which is done not the best way. It's a dovashin miskaven or malacha shen sichel gufa, where you did the malacha without the right intention or not for the right thing. Then there's Yehuda and Reb Shimon. Reb Shimon is always makel that you're not considered doing a malacha, and Reb Yehuda is always machber that is considered a malacha. Generally, we had this machlekes many times. I hope it's clear, this machlekes. Generally, in the Mishnayos and Shabbos, if you look carefully to the Mishnayos, you will find that we are always, most of the Mishnayos are makel. That means most of the Mishnayos go b'shittas, who? Shittas Reb Shimon and Shittas Reb Yehuda. What do most Mishnayos go according to? Reb Shimon. Most Mishnayos go according to Reb Shimon. Now, according to Reb Shimon, putting out a fire is almost never chayav. Why would you put out a fire? It's malacha shel sichel gufa usually. The answer is, when is a person chayav putting out a fire? Only in order to make a wick burn better later. So therefore, the purpose of putting out a fire is in order that later you should have a wick in order to burn better. That's what Mishnah says. We'll come back to this just in one moment. Let's just finish off. A makabah patish. Some does the final blow to a keli in order to complete it. To take away from Shusach to Shusurabim. That's 40 minus 1. There's a fascinating word from somebody called Chanuch Erentor. Anyway, he is the one that Dan Erentor is named after. He's the great grandfather of most of the Erentors that we know. It is a very interesting thing. The Rambam brings this whole list with 2 changes. Change number 1. He doesn't say putting out the fire, then lighting a fire. He talks about lighting a fire, then putting it out. He changes round mechaba and mavi, like we would in theory, because it talks first about doing and then undoing, right? Building, then knocking down, sewing, then tearing, and things like that. That's how he does, not like our Mishnah. Furthermore, the Rambam doesn't say hazivea ba'achivish. The Rambam says hazvia ba'acharisha. Planting and plowing. In Diktuk, which everybody loves, there's a very big difference between Zureh and Zvir. Hazureh is referring to the person who does it. Hazureh, a person who plants. Hachevish, a person who plows. Zvir is not referring to the person who's doing it, it's referring to the act, the act. It's a verb. Plowing, planting, etc. Why does the Rambam change in these 2 fundamental little things? And he says like this: the Rambam paskins like Rabbi Yehuda, the Melacha Shen Sicha Dov Shen Iskaven is chayav, not like most of the Mishnayos and Shabbos. Therefore, according to Rabbi Yehuda, if you plow without intention of plowing, let's say you're pulling along a table and you create a plow, what's the halacha? You're chayav. According to Rabbi Shimon, you're potter. Therefore, the Rambam doesn't need to say achivash. Somebody who plows, he wants to plow. The Rambam can just say chavisha, the act of plowing. It makes no difference if you intend to plow or not. The very act of plowing itself is a chiyuv chatos. Mash'enkin, our Tadava Mishnah was going like Shimon. He says, somebody who wants to plow. And I heard this word, and manish felt this was as exciting as drinking a lechaim. It's unbelievable word if you think about it. The difference between the nuance between the Rambam and the Mishnah. The Mishnah says, Hachayvish. I was so excited I had to tell a lot of people. Not everybody was appreciative. But it's a very, very nice word if you think about it. Our Mishnah says, Hachayvish. Somebody who wishes to plow. Somebody who's planting. The Rambam doesn't hold of Dovish Miskavan's part of Rosh for his part. The Rambam holds any form of plowing is awesome. So the Rambam doesn't need to say Hachayvish, somebody who goes to plow. But Chavisha, plowing itself is forbidden. Let's say you pull a table and it comes out plowing. That's also forbidden. Okay. And then similarly, the Rambam writes. What do we hold?
Doesn't he hold that by every malacha?
Yes, he says it by every malacha. He says by everyone. Chavisha, Zvia, Ktsira. He doesn't say Hakoitza. He says Ktsira if you look in the Rambam. And that's why he changes around putting out a fire and lighting a fire, because he holds that putting out a fire is also a chiyuv d'oraisa, not in the case only of putting out a wick, but even the malacha shein tzurcha legufa is chayav. This machlokes, when we pass like Yehuda and Shimon, goes all the way down to the Shulchan Aruch. We all lemaisa generally make it. It doesn't make a huge nafkimina, because either way, if it's not awesome in our it's awesome in Durabbanon. The very big nafkimina is, let's say, for example, cutting one's nails. Goizes is forbidden because of, cutting one's nails is also because of goizes. Now, when they used to shear sheep in the Beis Hamikdash, they did it because they wanted the shearing, right? When a person cuts his nails, I do not know of anybody that's ever cut his nails because they want the nails. They do it because they don't want the nails. So for cutting nails, at the very, very least, should be a malacha shein tzurcha legufa. So as I said, it makes hardly enough kimina, because according to the Rambam, cutting one's nails would be a issa d'oraisa, because he was like a Yehuda malacha shein tzurcha legufa is chayav. And according to the way we pass, because malacha shein tzurcha legufa is only also d'Rabbanan. So either way, you can't cut your nails on Shabbos. It does make enough kimina if a person needs to do tefillah shel mitzvah. If one needs to do a tefillah shel mitzvah on Shabbos, they used to do shimush. This shaila did come up a couple of times, and it's a very, very chomodik shaila. A woman forgot to cut her nails. Comes Friday night, what should she do? It's a very, very big problem. It's a huge problem. Okay, I don't want to go off the point, but this is a very big shaila. Okay, it's a fascinating shaila. It is a very fascinating. Nice, make enough kimina. If you're that goes is d'oraisa, I mean cutting your nails is if you're not just d'oraisa, then even asking a goy would only be one issa d'Rabbanan. Asking a goy to cut the nails is one d'Rabbanan is not permitted ever on Shabbos. But if cutting one's nails is a d'Rabbanan, it's asking a goy is a shvus to shvus, a double d'Rabbanan. Double d'Rabbanan is permitted from lokim hefset. So anyway, that's a very interesting chat in the Rambam why he says chadish. Okay, so the Mishnah listed out for us the 39 malachas, and now we're top of Ayin Gimel on the base. Says the Gemara, and this Gemara we've had so many times that we should say it in our sleeps. Minon anomaly. Why does the Mishnah need to tell us 39? Answers the Gemara, if you do all 39, you won't forget. How is it possible to be chayav 39 chatois? We said once, there's a difference between forgetting Shabbos or forgetting malacha. To be chayav 39 malachas, do you need to forget Shabbos or forget the malachas?
Forget the malacha.
Very good. Forget the malachas. If somebody does not know this, it's a very big loss. If a person, after all this, a person has to forget the malachas. So I'm going to ask you, how is it possible for a person to be chayav 39 chatois? He has to forget all 39 malachas of Shabbos. He's forgotten all 39 malachas of Shabbos. In what way does he still remember that it is Shabbos? Who asked this? Remember, it's Tchumim according to Rabbi Akiva, very good. Or according to Rabbi Yochanan, he remembers that it's a lab and not cause. Okay, says the Mishnah. So it says the Gemara three lines down. As Mechti, since Mikra Kolvi Bereisha, people first plow. Listening Church was listening Zerah. It should say first plowing, then planting. Answers Gemara Tana Beretz Yisrael Kli. The Tana was in Eretz Yisrael, where the ground is very, very, very hard. It's rock hard. The Zoe Bereisha, first they plant, Bahadar Kolvi, then they plow. After planting, they need to plow in order to cover the seeds. So therefore, planting occurred after planting. So what? So the Rishonim will explain. The Chiddush is that that's also because of Chavisha. Had the Mishnah just said Chavish Zavea, which is the normal way, so then you would have said planting before planting, that is forbidden in the Torah. But planting after is not. Kamash Malon, that both are awesome. Tono, we learned in the Vaisa, Hazivea, somebody who plants, Ba'azoimer, somebody who prunes. Prunes is an act of cutting down weaker branches, bad branches, in order that other branches should grow better. Have you heard of the word pruning? This is another thing. Azria, somebody who plants, some prunes. Ba'anotea, somebody who plants. So in English, there's no difference between planting a seed and planting a tree. In Chazal, there is a difference. Zevea is referring to planting a seed, zera. Noitea is planting a tree, neta, a plant. So Zevea refers to planting a seed, but Noitea planting a tree. That mavich. Mavich was a form, I've actually once seen it in a farm, where what you do is, in order to create more vineyards growing, you take a branch of the vine, you push it into the ground, cover it with the soil, and let it stick out somewhere else, and then it will take root there, and eventually grow into another whole vine. So what you do is you push the branch of the vine into the ground, let it come out another place. And here they've got a picture, if somebody can't picture, that's called mavich, right? I don't know the exact English word for mavich, but it's basically creating another tree by putting it through the soil. Markiv. Markiv is grafting. Grafting basically is you take a branch from another tree, then you cut a small cut in a tree, and you push the branch from another tree into that tree, and then you tie it round, wrap it round together. That is grafting.
There's
So
also propagating or something. Propagating.
Oh, propagating is mavich. Propagating. Okay, that's a nice word. Kula melocha achas ma'ik mashma lo. Oisim lochis habi melocha achas in echayv achas. So if somebody spent his Shabbos afternoon not knowing that planting is forbidden, and he plants a seed, and then a tree, and then he does mavich, propagating, he pushes a branch into the ground, and then he does grafting, and then he does a bit of pruning, and then he finds out, hey, it's Shabbos, we weren't allowed to do any of this. How many chatois does he have to bring? One, because it's all a form of planting. All of this is a form of planting, even grafting, even propagating, even pruning. Now this is a big chiddush. You see somebody cutting a branch off a tree, what would you normally say to him? Which Aveva is it being over? What would you normally say to him? Koitza, harvesting. And here, what you're going to say to him, no, you're not. When you see him pruning, he's not being over koitza, he's being over zevea. Says the Gemara. Somebody who prunes is chai because of planting. Somebody who plants, as we explained before, propagating and grafting, says the Gemara, is it only because of Zevea, not because of Netea? They're both basically the same thing. One's a seed, one's a plant, one's a tree. That means you might have thought if you plant a seed, it's not the same as grafting a tree. If you graft a tree and plant a tree, okay, that's the same halacha you have one. But if you plant a seed and graft a tree, you might have thought that's two separate malachas and you should be chayav two chatois. Says no, that is considered one and you only have one. Omav kahana, zoyme, somebody who prunes with tzorich leitzim and he needs the wood, chayav shtayim. We're going to have this quite a lot in this period, where the Gemara works out that you can actually be chayav for a number of malachas in one go. And here the Gemara starts off with a very simple example. Now what happens is, somebody came to a tree and there was some dead branches on it. So he starts pruning the weaker branches, not the dead, completely dead. He starts weaker, not completely dead because they will be chayav because of koitza. They're dying, they're not good branches. So he prunes them off that the good branches should grow better. So at the same time, though, he thinks to himself, this is good because I need some branches. I need some branches for firewood. I need some branches for building. So this person is doing one act with two separate intentions. He's pruning to increase the growth of his tree, and at the same time he's cutting the branch, he's pruning the branch in order to be able to have more firewood. So this person with one action is actually chayav for two chatois because he's got two separate malachas. Omar Ab Yosef. Now the Gemara says two or three other people saying exactly the same halacha, but in a slightly different situation, slightly different kind of tree or plant. Gemara says like this. Omar Yosef, aspasta. Aspasta was a kind of plant which you would cut it and it would keep growing, cut it and keep growing. And people would cut it often in order to give it to the animals. Chayav Stein, you chayav again too. Achas b'shum koitzer, because it makes it, you're cutting it in order to feed your animals. But achas b'shum noitea, because you're cutting it to make it grow better. Omar bayam man the koniv silka, a person who cuts beets. Chayav Stein, achas b'shum koitzer, achas b'shum zevea. Again, that means whether you cut beets to make the beets grow better, and at the same time to eat some beets, or whether you cut shachas to feed your animals and at the same time to make the shachas grow better, or whether you're cutting a branch in order to make the tree grow better at the same time have firewood. In all three cases, you're chayav to. Says what? V'achevash. Tana, we've learned hachevash, some do plows. V'achifa, some do digs. V'achevatz, some do makes furrows in the ground. Kulon melacha achas, saying that's all one melacha, and it's all the aveva of chevash, and one is chayav, one chatas. Omar sheishes, hoyseloi gav shushes. If a person has a mound, he's got a big pile of earth, v'notlo, and he takes the mound of earth away, then bebayis, if it's inside his dining room, chayav mishum boina, is chayav because of building, because by taking away the mound of earth, the room is better, so he's building a house. Besode, if he takes away in the field, mishum chovesh is chayav because of chovesh. That means clearing a mound of earth from the floor is also plowing. It's interesting to see here how we're building on malachas. If a person, for example, clears stones away, that's also chovesh. If you see a field, there's got lots of stones there, and you want to clear the stones away, and eventually one day to be able to plant them. So clearing stones can be an issa of chovesh. The nafkamina also is because the halacha is not allowed to do chovesh on shmita. So, for example, on the shmita year, farmers are not allowed to go around the fields and start clearing stones or pebbles which have accumulated in their fields, because that's also a form of chovesh. Omar Baba, achifa gumor b'Shabbos. Sorry, let me start a line. Omar Baba, who's the gumor? The person got a hole in his house. But Tomamo, and he fills up the hole. But Bais inside the house, because he's made his house better. Here we have, normally we consider digging a hole plowing. Here we have filling up a hole, and that is plowing. Why is filling up a hole plowing? Because if you've got a ditch in the ground, a big hole in the ground, you can't plant there. So therefore, what happens is by filling up the ground, you're making the ground more suitable for planting purposes. So filling up the hole with soil, you're now actually doing chovesh. So chovesh is anything which makes the ground more suitable for planting, including adding earth. A person who digs a hole on Shabbos only because he wants the offer. Even according to the man Doma says, and over here you're digging, meaning you're doing chovesh. That means if a person drags a table and makes furrows in the ground, and therefore that's so much what's common. Let's say a person digs a hole because he wants afterwards for the earth, because he wants the earth for something else. At the same time, he's making the ground better. That's melacha she'en tzricha legufa. Over here, when you're just digging a big pit in the ground, where you're not actually improving the ground at all, then you're not chayav according to Rabbi Yehuda, because it's a melacha she'en. It's not melacha she'en tzricha legufa. It's simply a mekalkel. It's simply mekalkel, and therefore you're not chayav even according to Rabbi Yehuda. V'hakoitza. Next, we finish now with zevea and chovesh. We said chovesh is anything which improves the ground for eventually harvesting, including cleaning away stones, including adding earth to places in order to make it flat. All of that is chovesh. And furthermore, we said zerah. We said zerah includes all forms of improving plants. Even pruning can be a form of zerah. Watering, anything which makes the plant grow better is zerah. One has to be very careful on these summer Shabbos not to drink drinks in one's back garden, unless one's back garden is cemented, because we're choishesh that a person will spill some of the drinks on his ground, as he's got a lawn, and therefore it is forbidden. Recently, whenever it's been hot weather, I've gone to visit my parents. So the only way I can visit is that we sit at the other ends of the garden. So often on Shabbos afternoon, I sit and talk, learning sometimes quite long with my father. And he never has a drink. So every so often, he can't drink in the garden because he might spill some water onto the grass and then it would be zereh. So when he wants to stop, so every so often he has to go inside, have a drink, and then come back out to continue learning. Okay.
How come it applies even if you don't want it, or there's no need, you're not going to gain anything from it? Why does it apply even if there's no, you're not doing it to
person wants his grass to grow usually.
So if you spill a bit of juice from, let's say, a bit of Coke, it's not as if it's going to help.
Right. But so what? You're right. I didn't mean to go so much to the deep, but the point is like, if a person doesn't want, for example, in your neighbor's garden, you're allowed to have a drink. Because in your neighbor's garden, you really don't make any difference to whether the grass grows or not. But in your own garden, you do want the grass to grow. I'm wondering your question about Coke. I'm almost sure it's awesome. I'm just thinking Coke probably makes things die. Does Coke make things grow? I don't know. I must admit, your question of Coke is a bit... I imagine it's forbidden because I imagine it does make things grow.
No, Coke was an example in any drink, really.
Say acid. Okay, you don't drink acid. Something that doesn't make things grow, indeed, doesn't make things grow. But let's say you're drinking orange juice. So at the end of the day, you are happy if the grass were to grow. So therefore, it's awesome.
How about
in your neighbor's garden, you're okay if you want to have a drink in your neighbor's garden. What do you say? I don't want to get off too much. Yeah?
Swing ball, for example, it's a game which has water to keep it straight. Which, if it tips over too much, do you know what swing ball is?
I hear. So if you play swing ball on grass, it depends how often. Does it really spill water or not? That's a very good question. I like the question, but I don't know. Because you have to find out, does water tip out? Depends how you're playing it. Like an 8-year-old girl or a 12-year-old boy, it makes a big difference as to whether... It's a good question. Va'akoitza and harvesting. In English, there's no difference between harvesting wheat, olives, grapes. I don't think there is anyway. We use the same word, harvesting. But in Chazal, we covered many, many times, we have this, we're going to have this. There's different words used for harvesting different things. Va'akoitza, Tana we've learned. Hakoitza, some do cuts wheat. The haboitza is somebody who cuts grapes. The hagoida, some do harvest dates. The hamesik, some do harvest olives. The oiva, and some do collect figs. Do any of you remember that? Koitza is wheat, boitza is grapes, goida is dates, mesik is olives, oiva is figs. All 5 different expressions of harvesting, but they're all just different produce. Kula malacha achas. Omar malacha achas. Omar papa. Hayman deshoda pisala dikla. The person throws a clod of earth to a date tree. The osar tamri, to knock down the dates. Chayav shtaim is chayav 2. Achas b'shum toilash, achas b'shum mefarek. One because of toilash, meaning harvesting. Achas b'shum mefarek. There's a very big machlekes. I'm only explaining Rashi. Dates come in huge, big clumps from branches. And what you have to do is, just like by dosh, what you do is you extract the kernel of grain from its peels and from its covers and from its husk. Also by dates, Rashi holds, there's a din of dosh to take the dates out of its clusters. Here is a picture. Right, not such a brilliant picture. Here you've got a cluster of dates. There's got to be here a clod of earth, and you're throwing it at the dates, and out come the dates. You are undoing, you are You're extracting the dates from its clusters. It says, well, it's not the normal way. Since it's not the normal way, one is not chayav. It's only asked to abanon because it's kalah hayat. This is a very important question. When is something considered kalah hayat or not? I saw a nice tshuva. It's completely slipped my mind as to something out there. And doing an issa when a person does it in the wrong way, if I remember tomorrow. This is important halacha that if somebody does something in an unusual manner, then it's not an issa d'oraisa, it's only an issa d'rabbanon. For example, I was going to mention that biting nails is only also d'rabbanon, it's not the normal way. And therefore, in theory, if a person was really desperate to have the nails cut on Shabbos, one could ask a goy to bite one's nails. Though that would be a very difficult sack. I only once heard the Rav asking such a thing, and I said to him that that's. I don't want to go into it. But anyway, but the say it's incorrect. It's not. I don't. I mean, I shouldn't say it's incorrect. It's big on talking on me. I wouldn't have. Won't follow that psak. Okay, so we're finished now with koitza. Koitza, any form of koitza is forbidden. Person gathers salt from the place where salt is made. That is like they would make these little. The water would come out in a furrow, and it would dry out in the sun, and then you would have salt on the floor. Gathering the salt is ma'amah, because just like you're gathering sheaves, you're gathering salt. Only something which grows. Imagine if not for Abaya, there would be a shayla gathering clicks on Shabbos or Lego, where there'd be an issa ma'amah on Shabbos. Because Rava says collecting salt is forbidden on Shabbos, and Abaya comes along and says, no, only something which grows. Many of the Rishonim point out that Rava didn't talk about scattered salt. Rava talked about a case where salt is produced and gathering it from its place of production. And even then Abaya said it's permitted because it's not something that grows. Salt doesn't grow. Say the Rishonim, from here we see that if something collects something which is not in the place of its growth, it is permitted. Therefore, if let's say you've got a bundle of grain and it comes into your dining room and it scatters across your dining room, so then gathering it together will not be forbidden because it's not the place of its growing. That's what the Rishonim are medayik from this Gemara, because Rava, who was machmir, we don't hold of Rava. We hold me'amah only by gedulei karka. But even Rava that was machmir and says there is me'amah, he was only talking about the place where salt is produced. He didn't talk about salt scattering around your table. There are other Rishonim that disagree, and they say that Rava was just talking about a technical example. When do usually people gather salt? Is usually from its place of produce. That means what they would do is they would go to the ditches where the salt would dry, seawater would dry out, and gather the salt. And that's what Rava was saying is ma'amah. But he wasn't coming to exclude all other places. So that's a big shayla. And therefore, for example, if a person has a very big bowl of oranges and they scatter across a person's dining room, can he collect them all back into the bowl? So Pashas will make it, but this would be one of the reasons to be made is because it's not in its place of its growth. There are other reasons, but that's one of them occurs. But Hadosh, Tanu we've learned, Hadosh, somebody who threshes, that's somebody who extracts grain from its kernels, from its husk. Vamanapits, somebody who takes out flax from its seeds. Vamanapit. Manapit is like this. What you do is you bang on cotton wool in order to extract the cotton wool. Rashi says you do it with a bow and arrow. You take a bow, so you take a bow and you bang onto the cotton wool in order to take the cotton wool out. So that would take away, that would be a same idea. It's basically extracting, just like you can extract grain from its husk, you can extract flax from its seeds. You can extract cotton wool from its, here the article translated as striking cotton with a bow to remove the seeds from the cotton. All this, kula malacha achas, saying the all malacha achas, they're all the same idea of dosh. Hazera, somebody who winnows abira va'ateichen maraket. Says the Gemara, hainu zera, hainu boira, hainu maraket. That the three things are exactly the same. Winnowing is to get rid of the shaf. Boiva is to get rid of the pebbles, and Meraked is to sieve. They're all essentially sieving and cleaning away the bad from the good. Answer the Gemara, anything that happened in the Mishkan, top of Ayin Dalet Amud Aleph, even though there's others which are exactly the same, even though they're similar to each other, so we counted. So let's talk about Kotish as well. Kotish was that if a person was rich, they would have white flour. If a person was poor, they would have brown flour. Now it's all changed. You pay much more for brown bread than you pay for white bread. But not actually, hitting was not so bad. And it's so brown bread was like 4 times the price. But in the olden days, eating white bread was considered better. And therefore, what you do is you bang it to get rid of the bran, whatever it's called. So why is that not counted? That's also boil. He eats it without banging. He eats it. So therefore, we don't mention it because it's not always done. And as Rashi explains, that our Mishnah wanted to go through the order of preparing bread. And this was not always one of the things they used to prepare bread because the poor man won't get rid of the bran. So therefore, it is not mentioned. Rav Omar. Homani, who's our Mishnah? Rebbe. Rebbe's got a special drasha to tell us that only 39 malachas and no more. And therefore the Mishnah did not want to mention the 40th. Does anybody remember, where did Yehuda Nasi learn from the Torah that only 39 malachas and no more? Eila is Gematria 36. Hadvoim, Dvorim is plural, is 2, is 38. Hadvoim is 39, the extra 8. There are 39 malachas, the Rebbe says. It would come out to be 40. If the whole problem is we don't want it to be 40, take away one of these and add this one. Rather like the first one, like the cleaner one, like Abaya. And the reason the Mishnah does not mention Kotesh is simply because, why does the Mishnah not mention Kotesh? Because Kotesh is not always done. It's not always done. The poor man will never do Kotesh. We have over here just about an Omud telling us the halachas of Boira. And this is basically all the Gemara there is. There's very little, there's 1 or 2 other little Gemaras about Boira, and that's it. One has to be aware that Boira is one of the easiest malachas, unfortunately, to be over. Many people are over so deraisa or Boira without ever being aware. And it's a big tragedy because most people don't cook on Shabbos, they don't build on Shabbos. But Boira, a person can be very easily nichshol. Sometimes the children leave a mess of the toys on Shabbos. You want to tidy up the toys. Often, a child will say, "I don't want there's an onion in my soup." 9 times I've taken the please take the onion out of my soup. That's Boira. There are many cases a person can be nichshol in Boira. And Boira is mamish issa de'iraisa. There's no durabonans kemat in Boira except if you do it sichul kufa or etc. But the Maisa, it's a very, very, very big chashash. Somebody told me that David Moore starts off every meal on Shabbos that you should be aware that there's an Issa of Shabbos called Boira. Al Chas Hashem, if a person's over. Does anybody know who David Moore is? He's Tam Chacham who lives in Yerushalayim in Ezra's Torah. He starts off, somebody told me, what?
My wife's uncle.
Who's speaking? I don't know. Yes. Yeah, you're right. So you can find out. He starts off the meal by saying this.
It's true, I've eaten by his meal. He does say, I've eaten there.
You've eaten there. Oh, it's a huge Talmud Chacham. Anyway, he starts off the meal reminding people of the Issa of Boira. Boira is a very, very chomudika. Unfortunately, people, one way, for example, let's say, what do you do if your child says there's an onion, there's a carrot in my potato, I don't know, something he doesn't want in the plate, what can you do to avoid Boira? Is what you do is you take it and you eat it straight away for yourself. That shouldn't be Boira. What do you do if the toys are messed up? You can't tidy up the toys unless you want to play. You can take up the toy which you want. Now, be very careful. For example, sometimes you have a meal and you have plastic cutlery and metal cutlery, disposable cutlery and metal cutlery. And people start doing Boira to put the disposable in the bin. It's a big issa. It's mamish an issa de'iraisa of Boira. Okay. So more of them got one omud about it. Tonu Rabbanon. We bring a brisa which is very enigmatic, meaning that it's not clear what the brisa is saying, and the more afterwards explains the brisa. Person's got foods. You could do boira to eat. You do boira for somebody else to eat. But you mustn't do boira, which is self-contradictory. First says you can, and he says you can't. If a person does, chayav chatos. Says the Gemara, Micah, Omar, what is this brisa teaching us? Starts off by saying don't, then it says do. So first off saying you can, and then it says you can't. Omar ola, ochika Omar. You could do boira for today. You could do boira for somebody to enjoy that day. But for the next day, but if you do it for the next day, you have chatos. Ask Rav, do allow people to cook for that day? Do allow people to bake for that day? Of course not. So if that's the case, why would you be having that you're allowed to do boira for that day? Less than the amount that you a shear of a choshva shear, that means less than the dried fig. And then you can be boira for something else less than the shear. Or shear lo yivor. And if you do on chatos, to allow people to bake less than the shear, that's also forbidden. You're allowed to do boira with your hand. But with a keli, with a vessel, you're not allowed to. And there are two kinds of vessels. One's a kenoin, and one's a tamchoy. A kenoin looked a bit like a funnel. Let's see if we got a picture over here. Yes. Here's a kenoin. A kenoin was a very simple tool. It wasn't like a sieve. Where basically what happened was, it went narrower and narrower. And chaff and stones were usually wider than pebbles. So what would happen is, by making it go through a funnel kind of shaped plate, where it would go narrower and narrower, one would make it that the grain would come out, but leave behind all the rubbish. Alternatively, this is a tamchi. A tamchi is even less sophisticated. A tamchi was just basically a bowl, and what you did was you would tilt the bowl, and you would make that the grain should go to one side and the shaft to the other side.
And not just a normal bowl.
Yes, it was a normal bowl, which was, what's the word for it? Curved. Therefore, that way you could, like our bowls, yes. Says the Gemara, if you did, because these utensils are not the normal way, it's not a proper keli to do boira. Nofa and kvar are both sieves. The only difference between a nofa and kvar is as follows. A nofa is a fine sieve, and a kvar is a thick, wide sieve. Here they show a picture, but it's a fine sieve and a thick sieve. So those are the two kinds of sieve that they are. Those are proper keli. The Brisa doesn't mention anything about k'noin and tamchui. Now take the good out of the bad, the fruit from the pseudos. The pseudos but the bad out of the good you mustn't do. If a person does, the person's chayav chatos. Does the Brisa mention anything about good out of bad? You could do both for immediately. But for the same day you mustn't. If a person does it, it's as if he's doing it for storage. Which is Abaya, said the right thing. And we pass like these last three answers, which means that in order for boira to be permitted, one has to have three conditions. One has to do the good out of the bad. One has to do one has to do it with one's hand and not with a keli, not with a special utensil. And one has to do it for immediate benefit. So for example, if a woman knows that tomorrow morning she's going to dress her children and she wants to find their socks, so she wants to go through the washing basket and pull out the good socks which her children will wear Shabbos morning. Can't you take the socks out of the washing basket to find tonight? Dad says no. She's doing it with her hand and she's doing the good out of the bad because she's taking the socks that she wants. But she's doing it for tomorrow morning when she's going to dress them. That's not miyad. So therefore, that is mamish issa deraisa of boira. Let's say a person, for example, goes to shul and he plans to learn after davening. And what he wants to do is he wants to choose Sforim in a way that they're completely haphazard. Normally Sforim are not boira. But let's say they're completely haphazard in a way that afterwards he should have what to learn from. He wants to choose it before davening. That's not immediate. Why is it not immediate? Because first he's going to daven, and then he's going to learn. After davening, he should go and choose a sefer. So this is 3 halachas. You have to do good out of the bad. You have to do it with your hand, and you have to do it for immediate benefit. A hand does not literally mean a hand. A person, for example, if a child's got a piece of onion in the soup, so therefore they get upset about it. So you want to take it out. So you take it with your hand. You don't have to take it with your hand, you can use a spoon. A hand, just because a spoon is just considered an extension of the hand. When we say a hand, we mean la'afuke, to exclude, using an instrument that helps the boiver. When the person uses a hand, a spoon or a fork, it's not to help the boiver. It simply doesn't want to get his hands dirty, or it's more comfortable to hold it with a spoon or fork. When is it considered boiver? Is only in a situation where he uses something like a one of these forks, which spoons, which has lots of holes inside it, and use that to choose, let's say, a piece of carrot. That could be boiver, because at the end of the day, that's a utensil which is used to separate. That is not considered hand, but to use a fork or a spoon, that's not a problem. For immediate, we mentioned a few examples. There's always a question, what's considered immediate? If a person is planning to make a meal, the Mishnah says that he's allowed to start, let's say a woman is preparing for a meal, and she wants to do boiler. The fact is that if she's got a whole meal plan and it takes her 20 minutes, half an hour to prepare the meal, then of course she can start 20 minutes, half an hour before the meal to do. And even if she doesn't know exactly what time the meal starts, for example, she doesn't know what time her husband will come home, then it's also okay. What's not okay is, let's say she plans to prepare for the meal, and then afterwards, let's say, go for a walk or something like that. That is forbidden. But there are many, many cases of boiler. One has to be very aware. The word says like this: if he's got 2 kinds of food and he does boiler, choosing one food for the other, Ravashi Masli Potter, Aviva Difta Masli Chayav. Says Ravashi Masli Potter, Chayav. The Bible says Chayav. The Kasha Beklev Tabche, but off of the Kvo. That's talking about with a Nofa, the Kvo, with a sieve, then it is Chayav. But when it is done with a hand or with a Knod and a Tabche, then he holds it's okay to do one fruit from another. Let's just finish off this little story. Also, Rav Dibi. Rav Dibi came, Oba Shabbos to Rav Bibi Havoy. It was the Shabbos when Rav Bibi's turn to serve. The Iklo Rav Abi Vavasi. Rav Abi Vavasi came in front of him. Shodo Kamayu Kalkolo de Pevi. He threw in front of them a huge basket of fruit. But the Yodana, I don't know, why did he throw in front of them a basket of fruit? He held that even food, good out of the bad, is forbidden. And therefore, he just threw the whole basket to scatter them around the Shmimuta. Or maybe he wanted to throw the basket of fruit to show them that he's generous and they can help themselves to have much fruit as they want. So there's 2 different explanations why he scattered the fruit in front of them. Either that they should enjoy a feeling of an abundance, that they should be able to feel that they're not going to run out of food, just give them a huge amount of food. That's why he scattered the fruit. Alternatively, he did it because he didn't want to do oich mitech p'sodas. The Rishonim say, of course, they couldn't possibly hold that awesome. Look at the bottom Tosfos. Nobody can possibly hold that good out of the bad is forbidden. That doesn't make any sense at all. The only reason why maybe he held it was awesome was because of the fact that it was before the eating. And the ran at, why did he just not do boiler while they were eating? He says it's not nice to do boiler in front of somebody else. He wanted to do boiler before, and that was a shaila where the boiler before is permitted or awesome. But boiler in front of them, everybody agrees is mutter. So the question of here is, why did he scatter the fruit in front of them? Is it because he held that to do boiler earlier is forbidden, and he didn't want to do it in front of them? And therefore he just scattered them, there should be no problem with boiler? Or is it because of the fact that he wanted to show there's an abundance of fruit? In fact, thinks from over here, that if a person's got knives, forks, and spoons all mixed up, and he wants to choose only one of them, and it's a problem of boil, what can he do? Take the cutlery and scatter them across the table. And then it's no problem of boil because they're not mixed up. My son told me that he once went to hear a shiur from Ravumi Aaron. He's the deputy Rav of Gateshead. And Ravumi Aaron said like this, that he tells his children, you have to tidy up Shabbos afternoon. And his children not wanting to tidy up always say to him, we can't. It's boiler. Being extra fum. They found a reason not to tidy up. And he says to them, there are certain areas in this room which is not boiler, you can tidy them up. And if you don't tidy them up, what I'll do is I'll take all the toys which you've messed up, I'll scatter them around my entire house, and then there'll be certainly no problem of boil. And then you'll have to tidy them up that way. And that would be a much, much more difficult job for you to tidy them up because they've been scattered everywhere. But that is important heter if a person has got toys mixed up, let's say clicks and Lego. So if you scatter them in a way that they're not mixed up, then you want to, okay. We're up to Daf Ein Daled Amud Aleph, almost the bottom of the page. Any questions?
Yeah, when he said about the sefer and shul, is it a problem with Sfarim or not?
Generally not. I must admit that wasn't the best example. There would be if you've got a table with piles of Sfarim and they're all mixed up. If they're on the shelf and you're just choosing one off the shelf, that's not a problem. But I tell you like this. Already the Achronim themselves talk about it. It has to be a mixture. There has to be a real mixture over here. It's not considered a mixture when you've got the sefer which you can see. A mixture is when you need to literally separate and find your sefer which you want. Any other questions? It's a very important halacha, but okay. Yehuda Steinberg, it's you've eaten by your it's war.
To put the foreign back is a problem?
Yes, it can be.
A few times.
It can be a very big problem. Who's asked that? Big sorting out form to put them back. Again, it depends how you put the back. If you've got to sit at the chumash in your hand, put the back of the shelf, not a problem. If you've got a table which has got on it lots of sfarm, and you decide to sort out the sfarm, that is a problem of boil. Yes, that would be also as boil. If this happens, if it's happened to me, where you go after a simcha and you find the coats are all in a big pile. So what you do is you can take each coat is permitted to be taken to look at, is it yours or not, and then move to the side since you cannot see. Or let's say it's dark in your room, but you want to take out a pair of socks, you can't get the right one. But I'll take one, it's not the right one, put it away because you're looking for the right one. But let's say you know that these 10 socks are no good and you move them away to get to the right one, that's a problem with boil. As I said, boil is indeed quite a big topic. One has to be quite aware of it if one can. It's a big shame not to. Any other questions? Right, very good. Okay, so Mr. Shem, we're up to Ein Daled Amud Aleph. Today's daf was Ein Gimel, so we're actually a tiny bit ahead. Right, a tiny bit. Okay, let's start with everything. Everyone should have a very good night. Let's start with everything.